You ever have one of those mornings that start normal quiet, calm coffee still hot, and then in the blink of an eye your world flips upside down? That was me standing barefoot in my driveway staring at a tow truck hooked up to my brand new Ford F-150, and behind the wheel wasn't some city worker. It was Karen's son. The same kid who thought he ran this neighborhood because his mom wore the HOA crown like it was a royal title. That morning I realized something brutal. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about power. I live in Maple Grove Estates, a picture-perfect suburb where lawns are trimmed to regulation height and mailboxes must be aesthetically coordinated. You know the type. On paper it's peaceful. In reality it's a battlefield controlled by Karen Dawson, our self-appointed queen of community standards. She's got that signature blonde bob pastel cardigans and the personality of someone who's never been told no in her life. Me, I'm Daniel Miller. I bought my house 5 years ago, worked hard for it. I'm an engineer, which means I like things done by the book. I follow the law. And when I finally got my dream truck, a deep red Ford F-150 polished to perfection, I parked it proudly in my own driveway. Not on the street, not blocking anyone. My property, my right. But the HOA didn't like that. Trucks lower property value, Karen said in one of her emails, as if my vehicle was dragging down the economy. I even showed her city permits that proved my driveway was private and fully compliant. She backed off, or so I thought. So that morning when I saw her son Ethan reversing a beat-up tow truck into my driveway, I froze. He was maybe 22, wearing a grease-stained hoodie, acting like he owned the place. I shouted, "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" He barely looked at me. "HOA says trucks can't stay overnight," he muttered, like it was gospel. I'm just doing my part. Doing his part. My blood was boiling. Karen was standing on her porch across the street, arms crossed, watching it unfold with that smug little smirk she always wore when she thought she was right. "Someone's cleaning up this neighborhood," she called out like it was a victory speech. I took a deep breath, tried to keep calm. "This isn't HOA property, Karen," I yelled back. "You can't tow cars from private driveways." But she didn't care. She waved me off, pretending she couldn't hear. Ethan clanked his chains tighter around my front tire. That metallic sound, the rattle of those hooks, still makes my stomach twist. I stepped forward, planting myself between the truck and his rig. "Unhook it now," I said. He grinned, mocking me. "Or what? You're gonna cry about it." That's when Karen shouted again. "Go ahead, call the cops. Daniel, HOA's got my back." I don't know why, but something about her tone, the sheer arrogance, snapped something in me. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 right there, staring dead into Ethan's eyes. "Dispatch," I said loud enough for them both to hear. "I have someone trespassing on my property, attempting to steal my vehicle with a tow truck." Ethan's smirk faltered, but he didn't stop. He climbed back into the driver's seat, revved the engine, and tried to inch forward. The chains tightened with a sharp metallic groan. I slammed my hand against his window. "Cut it out before you make this worse," he sneered. Too late. And then, like a movie scene, the distant wail of sirens broke the air. Karen's face twitched. For a split second she lost that confidence. But Ethan doubled down. The tow truck's engine roared again, trying to drag my Ford just a few feet before the police arrived. When the cruiser pulled up, 2 officers stepped out, hands on their belts, calm but clearly unimpressed. I was standing in front of the tow truck, heart hammering. Karen was on her porch, still shouting, and her son sat frozen behind the wheel. "Sir," one officer said to Ethan, "turn off the engine and step out of the vehicle." Karen hurried down her steps like she was the victim. "Officers. Finally arrest him," she pointed straight at me. "He's harassing my son while we're trying to clean up the neighborhood." The officer raised an eyebrow, deadpan. "Ma'am, your son is attempting to tow a vehicle from a private driveway without authorization. That's not cleaning up, it's illegal." For the first time, Karen's grin slipped. She blinked confused, like she couldn't process the idea of being wrong. Ethan hesitated, eyes flicking between his mom and the cops. Finally, he killed the engine with a frustrated grunt. By then, the neighborhood had fully tuned in. Curtains lifted, porch lights flicked on, and phones were out. Everyone wanted front-row seats to the downfall of Karen Dawson. Karen scrambled to regain control. "Officer, you don't understand," she said with a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This truck has been an ongoing violation. Our HOA—" "Ma'am," the officer interrupted, his tone sharp. "HOA rules do not override state property laws." Her face drained of color. I took the moment to pull out my folder, the one I kept ready for exactly this kind of nonsense. "Here," I said, handing it to the officer. "City permits, zoning letters, all confirming my driveway is private and compliant. I've dealt with this before." He flipped through the pages, nodded, then looked at Karen. "Everything checks out. Your son had no legal grounds to touch his vehicle." Karen's mouth opened, then shut again. Ethan muttered, "This is ridiculous." The officer's voice turned cold. "What's ridiculous is attempted theft and trespassing. Do you realize the charges you're facing?" Karen panicked. "Charges? He's just a kid trying to help his mother." "Surely." "Ma'am," the officer cut her off. "He's operating an unlicensed tow truck and attempting to remove private property. That's a serious offense." You could feel the tension shift. Neighbors who used to nod politely at Karen were now whispering behind their phones, recording everything. For years she'd used fear to control this place, sending fines, posting threats, calling meetings to humiliate people who didn't obey. But now, standing there under the streetlights, she looked small, powerless. And I'll admit, for a second I actually felt sorry for her. Just a second. Because the truth is, there was a moment earlier, right before the cops arrived, when I'd almost given up. When I stood there, heart pounding, watching that truck inch forward, I thought, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I should have just parked it in the garage. Maybe it's not worth the fight. Maybe peace means letting people like Karen win. But then I remembered, if you let someone like that walk all over you once, they never stop. People like Karen don't respect peace, they respect pushback. So I stood my ground. The officer turned toward the growing crowd. "Anyone here file a complaint about this truck?" Silence. Then a few heads shook. One guy even said, "We like his truck better than that junker tow truck." A wave of quiet laughter rippled through the group. Karen's lips tightened, her famous smirk vanishing completely. The officer faced Ethan again. "Here's the deal," he said. "You can cooperate and leave peacefully, or we'll take you to the station. Your choice." Ethan looked at his mom, clearly terrified now. Karen whispered something frantic, but he shook his head. "Fine," he said, finally, voice low. "I'll leave." "Good," the officer said, "because next time it won't just be citations." He started writing. Trespassing. Unlawful towing attempt. Disturbing the peace. He handed the slip to Karen, who gasped like it was the end of the world. "You can't be serious," she shouted. But he didn't even look at her. The tow truck sputtered away, unhooked and defeated. Karen stood frozen in the middle of the street, surrounded by the very neighbors she used to intimidate. The same people who once nodded along to her HOA speeches now looked at her with quiet satisfaction. I walked over to my truck, brushed the dust off the hood, and exhaled for what felt like the first time that morning. One of the officers clapped me on the shoulder. "Good job standing your ground," he said. "If they try this again, call us immediately." I smiled, still watching Karen retreat to her porch like a scolded child. "Don't worry," I told him. "I will." That was the day everything shifted. The HOA lost its grip on Maple Grove. The residents started pushing back, asking questions, reading the fine print. Karen stopped showing up at meetings for a while. Ethan sold his tow truck. And me, I still park my F-150 in that same spot every night. You know, there's a strange kind of silence that comes after justice finally catches up to arrogance. It's not loud, not triumphant. It's calm, like the world just exhaled. Because that's the thing about power built on fear. It only lasts until someone stands up and says, "Not this time."